Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and this is my week in review ending today, which is December 8th, and I really only have a couple of films to talk about because I watched a lot of films from 2019 that I really want to focus on some actual reviews for, either because I really enjoyed them and really want to talk about them a little more, or they were some relatively big films that I just happened to miss in theaters but got to check out on AMC Theaters on Demand this week. And really the only film that I'm going to talk about from my Netflix DVD is The Kid. And The Kid is a film that did come out this year, and it is a Western directed by Vincent D'Onofrio, and it's centered around the young man and his sister, and things get started when he kills his father, who was abusing them, and gets all caught up. His uncle, played by Chris Pratt, is abusive and violent and is trying to find him, but then they get caught in the middle of Billy the Kid and Pat Garrett. Billy the Kid, played by Dane DeHaan, and Ethan Hawke plays Pat Garrett. And this film is a well-shot film, and it has some cool ideas. I feel like the big thing, though, is it has too much going on, and it's not quite sure what to focus on. Definitely has a darker, grittier tone than a lot of Westerns, which was something that was different and refreshing. And Vincent D'Onofrio does a nice job of creating that tone, that atmosphere. And Ethan Hawke was great in it. Dane DeHaan does a good job. And I just kind of wish that it was a little more focused and a little more engaging. Something just didn't pop about this film. Something that felt weird was Chris Pratt playing this horrible human being. And it kind of worked, and there's moments where I didn't quite realize it was Chris Pratt. He kind of disappeared into it a little bit. Now, I have a lot to catch up on the tubes because there's a lot of shows that I'm watching right now. I'm starting to realize that. This most recent episode of My Hero Academia was setting up a lot for what's going to be happening moving forward in this season, and then comes to an explosive point and really have some cool action and excitement towards the end of the episode, which was really cool. Now, Watchmen. Oh my god, this most recent episode of Watchmen flips the whole entire season on its head, and excuse me, the most recent season completely on its head, and there's just crazy twists and turns, the story's going, and things are really coming together, and you're starting to see the big picture of what the season's supposed to be. And I can't wait for tonight so I could watch the newest episode of Watchmen, because I want to know where this is going, because I think there's only 2 episodes left. And then new episode of His Dark Materials. This show I'm enjoying. It's not like pulling me in as much as definitely Watchmen is, and there's a lot of cool ideas, and it was a cool cast in it too. I'm just interested how this show's gonna play out, but definitely I'm more interested in this upcoming episode because there's a pretty cool drawing in point stinger at the end of this previous episode, so they have my attention going into tomorrow. Now, the new episode of Bob's Burgers, it's a Gene-centered episode, so it's crazy, it's flamboyant, it's over the top. His mom, Linda, trying to bribe Gene into a play, and there's a lot of crazy hijinks in it, and Gene episodes are some of my favorites because they're just so, Tina's awkward, Louise is really snarky and funny, and then Gene's just so ridiculously over the top you're not quite sure what to expect, and the episode centered around him really go that route too. A lot coming from Apple TV Plus, getting to see the new morning show, which it was really interesting because most of this season up to this point, Steve Carell's kind of just been a side character, and probably talked about more than he's actually showed up on screen, but then this episode centers around him completely, and it goes to really dark, tough places, and it's weird because most of the episode sets him up and humanizes him, because up to this point, you really don't get that, and you're really getting to see him. And then you get to see him at his very worst, and it's just messed up and hard to watch. C came to a head because most of the season is building up to this particular point that we're getting to, and it comes to a climax with Jor-El, and it's interesting how this all plays out, and his introduction finally into the show, and it has a really intense, gratifying climax to the episode. The show still has so much going on, and yeah, I'm not quite sure where the show is going at this point, but it's tough because it's like, what else is it going to be building up to? And I'm interested enough to try to see where it goes. The new episode for All Mankind hit hard. Oh geez. This is probably the most emotionally devastating episode of the season so far. And also, interesting enough, most of the political intrigue so far in the show in regard to the Russians and the U.S., both of those things really come to a head in this episode, and it's really interesting that they both do in the same episode. And there's some tough emotional moments, especially centered around the main family in this story and Joel Kinnaman's family, and it's interesting to see what's going to happen next with this show, and especially where his character's going. And then the fourth episode of Servant, things are really coming to a head in this show, and Toby Kebbell's husband character and their nanny, things are really coming to a head with them. And then there's a great stinger at the end of this episode. I'm not surprised. This is an M. Night Shyamalan series. I wouldn't be surprised if every single episode has like, bam, what? Kind of thing. And I'm ready for it. And this show is definitely the best show they have on Apple TV+. The new episode of The Mandalorian had a lot of cool things. Like Amy Sedaris pops up in it, which was pretty cool. And then Mando teaming up with another young bounty hunter trying to capture this assassin, which was really cool. It's like you go back to Tatooine, which was really cool, seeing Tusken Raiders and the shootout. It really felt like a Western in this episode. And then Jeff Goldblum, The World According to Jeff Goldblum, and this one was about barbecue. And it was interesting because it looks at like traditional American kind of barbecue, but then also looks at Korean barbecue, and Jeff Goldblum just having a ball with all of it. And every episode is just interesting to watch because of Jeff Goldblum. But it was this was more of a kind of how-to, I guess, kind of thing, and less of here's the history of it, but there was some history involved in it too. Now, binge watching, I watched the whole first season of Movies That Made Us, and I absolutely loved it. It was a fun thing on Netflix. It's just 4 episodes, each episode dedicated to a big film. And it had Die Hard, it had Ghostbusters, Dirty Dancing, and crap, what was the last one? It'll come to me. But it's a fun show where it's like just each episode you get to see the history of each of these shows being put together. And it was a blast. If you're a movie fan, it's a great thing for you. I finished the first season of Hunter x Hunter, and out of 26 episodes, I find it interesting certain anime spend a lot of time recapping things, and they literally had 2 episodes just recapping things. But this season had so many cool different set pieces, and leading up to a very explosive point where the season went. And I appreciated how they dedicated the whole season to the training part and this exam to become a hunter, and you really connect with your group of characters. And then towards the end you go into a deep dive into one of their backgrounds, and that was intense and different and shook the show up. It's a lot of fun. It's definitely weird. It's definitely out there in terms of anime, but I think it's really cool, the concept of these hunters who are professional hunters, and like this whole season dedicated to the trials that they had to go through to get to that point. Oh my god, my girlfriend and I watched Snoopy in Space. It's adorable, it's charming. If you love traditional Peanuts, you're gonna love this. It's Snoopy trying to go into space, and there's a lot of cool visuals, and it's just a lot of fun. It's cute, it's charming, and it's really nice something to watch with the whole family. I watched the first episode of Invader Zim. I'm obviously going to get around to watching the rest of the first season, but that was a trip down memory lane, and that show's just as crazy, dark, and weird as I remember it, which was very different for for Nickelodeon at that point because it was a very different kind of show. And I still appreciate how different it is and how it was shaking things up at that point. And then watching Truth Be Told, the first 3 episodes released on Apple TV Plus, it's interesting, and there's a lot of twists and turns. There's just so much stuff going on trying to process in the show, and I feel like the show's probably going to falter and collapse under all of the weight of the different kinds of things it's trying to do. But we're going to see. It's an interesting kind of crime drama, and Octavia Spencer's in it, Aaron Paul's in it. I'm interested to see how it all plays out, but I feel like it might be one of those times where it's like, they could have trimmed this a lot, just get to the point kind of thing, and kind of feel like a Netflix show where it's like, does this really need to have all this extra crap in it? But you know what? We're going to find out. And that's my week in review. So if there's anything in particular you want to chat about more, comment below, and let's talk some movies and TV. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.